nestling in a crater watched over by villagers, a deadly and illegal weapon. A Soviet-era RBK 500 cluster bomb, which failed to detonate after being dropped on this remote village in Sudan. Bomblets litter the nearby fields. Each of these bombs carries 126 submunitions. Damning evidence that the government of Sudan is using such weapons in its campaign against rebels in the area. But it's civilians who are the victims of this conflict. People in the area say they hear the drone of warplanes almost daily. They scramble into caves and climb into stone shelters when the bombs start falling.
Cluster bombs are known to be indiscriminate, unreliable weapons. This is why they've been banned under international law. And really it's the humanitarian impact of these weapons that makes it so atrocious that Sudan has used them.
Human Rights Watch says the government's bombing of this area may amount to war crimes and has demanded an end to what it calls indiscriminate attacks. A Sudanese military spokesman told CNN, quote, "We don't use cluster munitions in South Kordofan. We have no ties to such weapons." Adding, there is no need to use these kind of weapons to begin with. The fighting is in open space. The renegades don't have concrete fortifications. He also insisted these pictures could have been taken anywhere. But we know they were taken near the village of Angolo, and villagers say the bombing never stops. Today they bombed with their airplanes, says this resident. They bombed up there in the mountains and close to here. The rebels in this area, the SPLM North group, want to be part of the newly independent South. They depend on the civilian population for support and food. So the Sudan government's military strategy appears to be to terrify civilians into fleeing the area and to starve the rebels out. And many have. Every day more than 500 arrive in camps like Yida, many of them desperate for food. Here the children draw the Antonov bombers that have devastated their villages. 2,000 of them have arrived in the camp as orphans.
The pattern of warfare now, we see a higher and higher percentage of civilian casualties, because it's not the old traditional war where it's armies meeting in a designated field. It is a warfare that involves many civilian casualties.
Khartoum denies it has ever used cluster munitions, but the Danish demining group says there is a pattern of cluster bomb use in Sudanese wars. These Chilean-made PM-1 bomblets are still found throughout South Sudan, dropped by Sudanese bombers during the bitter civil war. Years after the fighting, these armored-piercing munitions are just as deadly.
They can land in fields, in homes, in villages, and of course it poses a risk to civilians. And civilians do not recognize what is a bomblet and dangerous and highly explosive and what is a toy. So you see a lot of curious children after these raids go and identify these exciting and new objects and blow their hands and heads off.
A terrible legacy for the villagers of South Kordofan. More than 100 countries have signed up to the convention to ban cluster munitions. Sudan says it will as soon as possible. But on this evidence, the government seems very reluctant to surrender these weapons and the terror they inflict. David McKenzie, CNN, Nairobi, Kenya.